The slap came out of nowhere. 1 second I was holding a champagne glass at the charity gala. The next, half the ballroom was staring at me. "Fire him," she snapped, pointing straight at me. "Or I swear I'll make you regret it." No hesitation. No embarrassment. Just pure entitlement. "My name is Marcus Hale, I'm 34. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned." The woman standing in front of me was Lena Roth, my boss's daughter. 21 years old. Rich, reckless, and famous inside the company for ruining people who didn't treat her like royalty. Tonight she had chosen me. The room buzzed with whispers. Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked entertained. No one stepped in. Because when the CEO's daughter demands someone's career, most people just watch. Lena crossed her arms. "Well," she said loudly to her father, "are you going to fire him or not?" My boss, Richard Roth, avoided my eyes. That told me everything. 20 minutes later I was sitting in his office upstairs. The music from the gala floated faintly through the glass walls while he stared at the desk like it had betrayed him. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I'm afraid I have to let you." I leaned forward. "Before you finish that sentence," I said calmly, "check your inbox." He frowned but opened his laptop. The moment the email loaded, his entire face drained of color. He looked at the screen again, then slowly at me. "What did you just send me? What did you just send me?" Richard Roth's voice sounded thin. Not angry. Not confident. Just shaken. He stared at the screen again like the numbers might rearrange themselves into something less dangerous. "They're real, aren't they?" I said calmly. He didn't answer. But he didn't deny it either. Have you ever watched someone realize that the person they were about to destroy might actually be the only one standing between them and a disaster? Richard slowly leaned back in his chair. "Where did you get this?" "The internal audit you asked me to run." His head snapped up. That audit was confidential. So was the money moving through those accounts. His fingers tightened around the edge of the laptop. On the screen were 12 transfers from company funds. Each one routed through a fake consulting firm. Each one signed off by the same person. Lena Roth. Richard rubbed his face. "This can't leave this room." I didn't respond. He noticed the second window open in the email. A scheduled message. Recipients, the company board, corporate compliance, and 2 investigative journalists. Time remaining, 23 minutes. Richard's eyes widened. "You set a timer?" "Yes." "You're threatening the company." "No," I said quietly. "I'm protecting it." He looked back at the screen again. Then at me. "Marcus, what do you want?" I held his gaze. "For you to stop protecting your daughter." Before he could respond, his office door suddenly opened, and the last person Richard wanted to see right now walked in. Lena Roth. Lena walked in like nothing in the world could surprise her. Then she saw me. Her expression hardened instantly. "You're still here?" she said. Richard didn't answer. He just stared at his laptop like it had turned into a bomb. Lena noticed. "What's wrong with you?" she asked him. Still no answer. So she stepped closer and glanced at the screen. At first her face didn't change. Then it did. The confidence disappeared. Slowly. Quietly. "What is this?" she asked. I leaned back in the chair. "You tell us." Lena looked from the laptop, to her father, then finally at me. "You went through company files?" she said sharply. "I did the audit your father ordered." Her eyes flicked back to the screen. The transfer records. The fake consulting firm. Her authorization signatures. All sitting right there. Richard finally spoke. "Lena, please tell me there's an explanation." She stayed silent for a second. Then she did something interesting. She smiled. "Cool. You're overreacting," she said. "To what?" I asked. "To numbers you don't understand." I nodded slowly. "Then maybe you should explain the envelope." Her smile faded. Richard frowned. "What envelope?" I turned the laptop toward him. The second attachment opened. A photograph. Lena, standing in a private lounge at last month's investor event. Across from her was the company's chief financial officer. And between them, a thick envelope of company cash. Richard's voice dropped. "Lena?" She didn't look at him. She was staring at me. "You think this scares me?" I shook my head. "No." I glanced at the countdown timer still running on the email. "But the board might." Lena didn't panic. That was the first thing I noticed. Most people would. Most people, when caught red-handed with financial fraud staring back at them from a laptop screen, would scramble for excuses. But Lena just leaned against the desk. "Come. Studying me." "You're bluffing," she said. Richard looked between us nervously. Marcus, please, he muttered, let's handle this quietly. I turned the laptop so he could see the timer again. 18 minutes. Lena followed his gaze. So that email goes to the board, she said slowly. And some journalists. I nodded. She crossed her arms. You won't send it. Richard looked at her sharply. Lena, stop. But she ignored him. Instead she stepped closer to me. You think exposing me saves you? She asked quietly. I didn't answer. Have you ever seen someone so used to winning that they can't imagine losing? Even when the evidence is sitting right in front of them. Lena reached over and closed the laptop halfway. Let me explain something, she said. You send that email, and the first investigation won't be about me. Richard frowned. What do you mean? Her eyes stayed locked on mine. It'll be about Marcus. The room went still. Richard slowly looked at me. What is she talking about? Lena smiled again. Those transactions, she said calmly. They were authorized through the finance department. She pointed directly at me. And guess who manages that department? Richard's face tightened. He looked from Lena to the files, then back to me. Marcus, he said quietly. Tell me that's not true. Richard looked at me like the ground under his office had just shifted. Marcus, he said slowly, is that true? Lena watched me carefully. Waiting. Confident again. I didn't rush to answer. Instead I reopened the laptop she had just tried to close. The same files appeared on the screen. The transfers. The fake consulting firm. Her signatures. Then I opened another attachment. Richard leaned closer. Lena's smile faded slightly. What is that? Richard asked. The part Lena didn't expect, I said. The screen showed the company's internal authorization log. Every financial transaction in the company required 2 approvals. The person requesting it. And the person releasing it. Richard frowned. Okay? I pointed at the first column. Requested by. Every entry said the same name. Lena Roth. Then I pointed at the second column. Approved by. Richard's eyes moved down the list. Again. And again. And again. But the name wasn't mine. It was someone else. Richard leaned closer. No. His voice dropped. That can't be right. Lena stopped breathing for a moment. Because the second name on every single transfer was the same. Daniel Roth. Richard's older brother. The company's chief financial officer. I folded my hands calmly. You were looking at the wrong suspect. Richard slowly turned toward Lena. Then toward the photograph again. His voice was barely above a whisper. You and Daniel were stealing from the company? Lena didn't answer. But her silence said everything. Then I tapped the timer again. 12 minutes remaining. Lena's silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then she laughed. Not nervous. Not panicked. Just annoyed. Dad, she said, you're seriously believing him? Richard didn't answer. He was staring at the authorization log like someone had just rewritten reality. Daniel signed those, he said slowly. Yes, I replied. Lena leaned forward on the desk. You're twisting the story, she said. Daniel handles financial approvals. That's his job. That's true, I said. Richard looked up. But Daniel also isn't here tonight. Lena's jaw tightened. And, she said. I opened another file. This one wasn't financial. It was a calendar record. Richard read the title aloud. Private Investor Meeting, Lounge Suite, last month. I clicked the attached photo again. The same image appeared. Lena. Daniel. The envelope. Richard exhaled slowly. That wasn't an investor meeting. No, I said. It was the moment they started moving the money. Lena pushed away from the desk. This is ridiculous, she snapped. But her confidence was slipping now. Richard looked at the timer again. 7 minutes. Marcus, he said quietly, if this email goes out, the board will open a criminal investigation. That's the idea. He ran a hand through his hair. And Daniel? He'll be investigated too. Lena suddenly stepped forward. You think you win by doing this? She said. I met her eyes. This stopped being about winning the moment you slapped me in front of 400 witnesses. Then the office phone rang. Richard picked it up automatically. His expression changed instantly. Because the person calling was Daniel Roth. Richard stared at the caller ID for a second before answering. Daniel. His voice sounded tight. Lena went completely still. What's wrong? Daniel's voice came through the speaker. The Gala's chaos downstairs. Someone said Marcus was causing problems. Richard didn't respond immediately. Instead he looked at Lena. Then at the laptop. Then back at the phone. Daniel, he said slowly, I'm looking at the transfer logs right now. Silence on the line. Then Daniel laughed. You mean the consulting payments? Yes. Another pause. Those are legitimate, Daniel replied. I leaned closer to the desk. Then you won't mind explaining them to the board. The line went silent again. Richard frowned. Marcus is in my office, he said. And he has documentation. Another pause. Longer this time. Then Daniel's tone changed. Sure. Richard, don't do anything stupid. Lena stepped forward quickly. Give me the phone, she whispered. Richard didn't move. Daniel, he said carefully, were you moving company funds through a shell firm? The answer came immediately. No. But the voice no longer sounded calm. I turned the laptop toward Richard again. The countdown timer was still running. 3 minutes. Daniel must have heard the typing. What are you doing? He asked sharply. Richard didn't answer. He just looked at Lena. Then at me. Then back at the screen. Finally he said something that made Lena's face lose all color. Marcus, don't cancel the email. The room went silent the moment Richard said it. Don't cancel the email. Lena stared at him like she had just heard something impossible. Dad, you can't be serious. Richard didn't look at her. He was watching the countdown on the screen. 2 minutes. On the phone, Daniel's voice turned sharp. Richard, listen to me. Whatever Marcus told you, he's manipulating the situation. Richard finally spoke again. No, Daniel, he said quietly. What I'm looking at is 12 illegal transfers, your authorization, and my daughter standing in the same room while the money was handed over. Lena stepped closer to the desk. You're destroying the company over this, she said. Richard shook his head slowly. No. You destroyed it the moment you thought you could steal from it. The timer kept counting down. 1 minute. Daniel's voice suddenly changed. Richard, if that email goes out, the board will remove you too. Richard gave a tired smile. Maybe. He closed the laptop halfway and looked at me. You could have blackmailed us, he said. I'm not interested in blackmail. Lena scoffed. You're throwing your career away. I stood up calmly. No, I said. You threw it away the moment you thought humiliating people was power. The laptop chimed softly. The email had been sent. Somewhere inside the building, board members' phones began vibrating. Richard exhaled slowly. Lena looked at the screen like her entire world had just collapsed. I picked up my jacket and headed toward the door. Behind me, Richard finally spoke. Marcus. I turned. You're not fired. I smiled slightly. That stopped being the important part hours ago.